Okay, this is going to be an introduction to the Audio Vault on-air screen. This isn't really going to be a tutorial on how to use it so much as just a video to kind of give you an idea of what to expect, how the system looks and works and all that. I'm kind of limited in what I can show you here because these screens here are all on the air at Sheridan Media. This particular one I have loaded here is a backup to one of our on-air systems, so I can kind of mess with it. But even so, it's following a program that limits me a little bit in what I can do at any particular time. So I will do my best here to just kind of give you an overview of how the system looks and works and what you can expect. Just give you the kind of the basics. And then once we do some actual training with your system built, you'll be able to get your hands on it and really get to know it. So let's just take a look at this. There are all kinds of different layouts for this system. It's called Audio Vault Flex, and it is very flexible. So you are not locked into this particular arrangement by any means. This is just the one I particularly like, but if you find something else that works better, certainly we can change it to that. I guess what we'll do probably is just start you off with a layout like this, and then you can, as things come up, you can say, hey, is it possible for us to maybe do this instead? And most of the time the answer will probably be yes. So anyway, this is the layout I prefer, and what we have here is your schedule on the left. This is your log of all the stuff that's scheduled here. For the rest of the day, or actually for the rest of whatever is scheduled. So if this was a Friday afternoon, late in the afternoon, we would already have logs done through the weekend. So you could scroll down here and look at stuff all the way down into the however long it's scheduled. Right now, it's just scheduled up until midnight tonight. So this is your log here on the left. And then on the right, we have a bunch of audio decks. And this is in live mode right now. I will show you one in auto mode here. In fact, probably by the time I get done with this video, we'll put this one in auto mode and you can see how that looks as well. But what you can see here is your estimated start times are over here on the left. And again, this stuff is completely customizable. In fact, the columns that we have here are just a tiny fraction of what's available. This is the stuff that we prefer on this station. You get your title, your artist, your cart number, and the duration of the file. But there's all kinds of other stuff. In fact, if I bring up the configuration menu here, I will show you really quickly the list of other things that we can do in here. If we go to visible columns, these are the ones that are currently selected to be displayed here on this window. But we can go in here and we can add, take a look at this list here. This is all the stuff you can have on that display. So pretty much anything you can conceive of can be indicated there. Kill dates is one you might want on there. All kinds of other stuff. I mean, literally, whatever you can think of is probably available here to display in this list if you want it. This is very customizable. Again, this is what they call a flat view. You can also do a nested view. So if I check that box, it'll take a moment. And then here you can see this is a different layout. What this is doing is it's showing every hour of the day, and then you can expand each hour and look inside it. So as you expand, like say the 2 a.m. hour, you'll start to see what is inside the 2 a.m. hour as far as local breaks go. There we go. So we have our news break, our 5 after break, the bottom of the hour and stuff like that. So if you expand these, you can see the commercial that are scheduled inside there. This particular layout is not the one that they like here on this screen. I'm going to go ahead and set it back to flat. Flat is actually the one I probably prefer as well, just because it gives you more information about the current time right where you happen to be. You can look at a glance and see what's happening that hour rather than having to get in there and expand it. So what we have here on the little indicators, these yellow boxes are the items that are loaded into the decks ready to play. If I clear these decks out, you'll see that those yellow boxes will vanish, showing that those are not currently loaded up. So anything that's loaded into a deck will have a yellow box on it. And you can load stuff into these decks by just dragging from your schedule over. Let me go ahead and get this configuration menu off of there. We typically don't have that on the screen. So we can drag this spot over and drop it into any one of the decks we want to play. And this is something that's not working properly because of my remote session here. I'm actually remoted into this machine on another workstation. Normally the mouse pointer would change to an arrow showing that you're dragging and dropping, but it's not doing that here because of my remote session. But you can see as I drag these over and drop them in, it loads them up into the decks. Another way to do this is to have a spot selected here, and you can click the load button on the deck and it will load the spot in that way. That is a quick way to load stuff in. If you want to load a whole commercial break in to play it, you can do that just by having your first spot selected and just going load, 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 load. And as you do that, you can see it drops down and loads all the stuff in to that break. So clearly we have a start button here. If I start that, it will play the spot.
Wyoming Corporate Office is the trusted business choice behind thousands of businesses.
Now I can click that and pause it, and I can click it to start it up again.
Formation, payroll,
This is counting up. We can make that count down if you prefer, but we do have a countdown up here on the current event, and the entire break is here. And you can see right now they're the same. If I click this AND button, it will link this spot to that one. You can see now the break length is the total of all the things that are linked, and I can link all of these things together.
Business successful? Trust that Wyoming Corporate Office can help you focus on what makes your business tick. Learn more today by visiting wyomingcorporateoffice.com.
And so when they're linked, the next spot plays automatically after the next one. And you can see this is the total length of the break here. If I click this, it will unlink that spot, and then it'll stop after this spot here. You notice that the little red here, this is obviously the fuel gauge that shows how much time is left in your spot here. That red is customizable too. You don't even have to use it if you don't want. All it's doing is just showing you that there's 2 seconds left in the current event. It can be a little distracting though, so
Hando Service Center on Sheridan's Heartland Drive.
we don't have to make that red if you don't want. So that's obviously how you play stuff when you're in live mode, and you can see as it plays, it puts an X next to it here showing that it's been played. You can play it more than once though. Like after the deck has done playing here, you can see that it just kind of goes gray with the same spot in there. If you click in here again, it'll reload that same spot into the deck, and you can play it back again.
Remember that feeling you got?
This button here fades out the spot.
And after the bell rang? Well,
you can see it fades out there. And then this button over here stops it immediately.
remember that feeling you got?
And that stops it immediately. You can customize what information is shown in these decks as well. This particular screen does not show the cart number, but we could add that if you prefer to have that rather than, like, say, the artist name or something like that. You can put whatever you want in here. And in this particular workstation, we have 2 pots on the board, too. So it alternates between pot 3 and 4, and it shows here which one each one of the decks is on. That's handy for overlapping audio because you can play any of these. These are all independent decks. You can play anything out of these all at once. So if I start one and then start another, we use that for things like weather beds. Let me drag a weather bed into here and a weather forecast. Now in live mode, it won't automatically do this, but I can do it by hand just by starting this and then starting the weather forecast.
Here's a look at your SheridanMedia.com forecast. Overcast
So
today.
you can
with a
play
chance of snow.
multiple
Highs
things
level
at
up
once.
Around 37. Northwest winds 8 to 15 miles per hour.
And if I have
Partly
this
cloudy
linked here,
skies tonight. Chance for
it'll
snow
link from
goes
bottom to
around
top, so
8
it just
above.
loops around
Chance of
through all
snow
these
again
decks.
tomorrow.
So
Highs
if I
level
have
up
this
around
linked now,
29.
when this
Mid-40s
weather is done, it'll
Thursday,
start playing this ad up
cooler
here.
Friday with highs in the low 30s and snow. A dusting of snow today. I'm meteorologist Paul Tremblay. Currently, it's 19 degrees.
Wyoming Corporate Office is located.
So you can see as you're playing stuff here in live mode, as long as you keep the decks loaded and click the AND button, it'll just keep playing stuff as long as you want it to. So you can have your decks linked to whatever break you want. It'll stop automatically after the break. You can see how much time you've got left up here in the break. And that's pretty easy to get around in, I think, when you're in live mode. I don't know if I demonstrated this already, but if you want to clear the deck out, you just hit the X button here when it's done.
Remember that feeling you got?
If you want to stop things right away, just click the stop button there. And that is basically how you use live mode. There's a couple other things you can do here. Let's say you've got some decks loaded. Let's just go ahead and load all those decks back up again. I'll select the first spot, and we will just hit load, 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 and get all these loaded back in here. Let's say that you wanted to swap the order of a couple of spots. Well, you can do that with dragging and dropping as well. And again, the mouse pointer probably isn't going to change like it should here because of my remote session. But if I wanted to take this Sheridan Media, actually, this is rotating through carts here. It is doing some kind of odd stuff because this is getting ready for a live show here. It's not a program to do what I'm doing right now. But this A is autofill. It's trying to autofill this break because it's actually the 10:20 break that's supposed to happen in the next hour. And so I'm kind of confusing it here a little bit by playing stuff in an hour that's supposed to be a satellite show, and I'm trying to treat it as a live show. So again, this is acting a little unusual. There might be a couple of things that it doesn't do exactly how it would normally behave. But anyway, let's say that I want to take this country bounty spot here, and I want to replace it with the health nut. I want to trade places with those. Well, if you just take this deck, drag it, and drop it up there, it will swap places with those two. I want to take this wrap PNH ad and move it on instead of the Handos one, just trade places with those. Just drag and drop it on top of that deck, and it'll trade places with those two. You can also swap them around down here and just load them in whatever order you want. Just drag and drop in the schedule. Something else you can do, let's say you want to take this health nut spot and play it in between the Wyoming Corporate Office and this wrap plumbing and heating. This one is going to be a little difficult for me to demonstrate because I kind of need the mouse pointer to change to show me. But if I do it just right, it'll probably still work. Let me take this health nut ad. What you do is you just drag it in between the two decks. And normally the mouse pointer would change to a little spreader thing when you're in the right spot, so you'd know that you've got it. But since my mouse pointer won't change, I have to just kind of guess here. Let's see if I can do it. I'll drag it up here and I'll drop it right in there. And no, it didn't work. It's going to be hard for me to demonstrate that because the mouse pointer's not changing. But that's just because my remote session. There we go. Got it. So what it'll do is stick that spot in between the two and then move everything else down. So that is the basics of the live mode. It's got the fade out button here, which is the same as the button here when it's playing. These little headphone things are just for auditioning stuff, for previewing the spot, but you need to have a preview deck selected, which I don't have. So the preview function won't work unless you have a separate sound card defined for that. Since we're getting close to the top of the hour here, let's go ahead and stick it in auto mode by clicking auto. And now you'll see a slight difference in the way things are laid out here on the right. The schedule on the left stays the same, but now this is just basically a zoomed in view of what's going on here on the schedule. And now I was messing around with this a bit and playing spots out of here, so it may be a little confused, but let's see what it does here going into the top of the hour. It should go ahead and load our satellite show here, which you can see getting ready to play, and we'll see if that works properly now that I've been messing with it. It may or may not. But normally what it should do here, normally this would just be sitting in auto mode ready for 10 o'clock, and I took it out of it early, so we'll see what happens here. But in the next couple of seconds, we should see it. And it did work. I just got to hit the start button here to get the automation going.
Message to the U.S. Supreme Court.
So now what it's doing is it's passing the Fox News audio for the top of the hour news. You can see here that it's playing the Fox Across America show, and the Fox Top of the Hour News is a program segment in this break right here. If I click the stop button, it'll just stop the automation. Obviously, this is a live satellite show, so the timer keeps counting because the show is still going. It's just the automation has stopped. And if I click the start button again here,
the same overarching issue in all
it'll go ahead and continue to play. So this is just now a zoomed in version of this. These are still decks you can play. If I click these buttons right here, it'll go ahead and play these spots right now. I don't know why you would want to do that, but the feature is there, I guess, if you need it. If you want to play something right away, it'll do it. These little arrows here allow you to advance and retract through the segments of the show. So if you wanted to skip the news right here and go into that 5 after break early, you can just click this little arrow button right here, and it would advance it to the next section. If you do a lot of live satellite stuff and not a whole lot of live morning show stuff, you can have another gadget up here, which is kind of useful. Let me go ahead and just bring that up here real quick. Here's a satellite one. We can drop this in here. And now you can see this is a zoomed in view of this little clock for the hour. And it shows you a little more information, like, for example, what satellite receiver this is on. And if you had a backup satellite receiver, you could actually click this pull down and change it to another receiver. If you've got a problem with one of your receivers, you can change it to another receiver just by clicking the pull down there. There are liners and stuff that will show here if the show has them. Of course, the Fox News does not, but the Jimmy Fallon show will. So once this moves into that show, we'll see some liners load down here. And you can play those by hand by clicking them as well, or just see them when they play. That is a few minutes away here, though, so let me show you something else. I can't do it on this particular screen, though. I'll turn the audio off here, and let's log out of this one real quick and go to another one. Can I get into that one? Yes, I can. They are done in that room. Let's go to the studio here. Again, this layout is totally customizable. You can make it look all kinds of different ways. And this is going slow today for some reason. My remote service is not being real snappy here. Let's just reload it. I probably got logged out is probably what happened. So I apologize for the delays here in the video as we're waiting for things to happen. But here we go. Let's get back into it. And let's go into the studio for that station. I'll show you something else you can do in there. He should be done using it. Let me take a quick look. Yeah, he's done in there. So let's load that up. And while we're waiting for the Fox News to end here. Okay, so this is another studio. This is actually the main studio for that station that I was just running the backup software on. So you can see it's running the same show here. Fox Across America, top of the hour news, your same schedule is here. They do have it laid out just a little bit differently. They don't have the break titles in here showing you the length of the breaks. They just prefer to see all that stuff together. But here we have a quick start tab. If I click this right here, it brings up a bunch of buttons that you can play. This is handy stuff for like a morning show. If you have jingles or music beds or even promos and liners and stuff that you frequently play during a show, but you don't necessarily need to have them scheduled on the log, you can play these at will just by clicking the button. And so you can have all kinds of stuff in here ready to go. And just by clicking the button, it'll play it. I obviously don't want to do this right here because the station's on the air. But yeah, this is all instantly accessible audio. So on-demand stuff that you can click and play whenever you want. You can also drag it from here and drop it into your decks. So if this was in live mode, you could drag it in after a commercial break, link it, and it'll play the spot that way too. And you can have multiple layouts of this. This is their morning show one. We also have a sports one here. This is only really handy if you have a board op in the studio doing games, though, which we very rarely do, because you have so many things in here. You can't obviously automate those with touch tones. There's more buttons here than there are touch tones available. So for automated games, we don't use this particular system. I'll show you the one we use for that here. Let's go ahead and put that back to the morning folder. Get this schedule back up, and let's go back to our screen that I can play with here, and we'll watch it come out of the news here because it's going to do that in about 30 seconds. So let's get our audio back on.
The president says Tesla will build a plant in the city of Monterrey, an industrial hub in northern Mexico, where the president had previously rejected.
So right now it's just passing the satellite audio through.
Shortages. But he says the company has made commitments.
You can see the time left in the current segment.
CEO Elon Musk is the
right
world's
here
richest
and right
person
here.
again in the Bloomberg Billionaires Index after a surge in Tesla stock. Right now, stocks are mixed overall on Wall Street. The Dow's down 176. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
And now it's going to play this 5 after break. Oh yeah, we're going to little. It's doing a conversion there for a show. So now you can see the local break is playing here. It's the 5 after break. And that's a 1 minute break until we get into the Fox Across America show here. You can see the rejoin liners loading here for Fox Across America. And this will probably actually play at the beginning, I think. So we should see that happen.
Large selection too. Free estimates. 643 Riverside Street. Carpet design.
And again, that red that shows up there, that's customizable. You don't need to have that. I personally don't like it. I think it makes it look like there's an error there, even though there isn't. And plus, I don't know how handy it is to know that you've got just a couple of seconds left in your audio that's playing, because you can see it here on the timer. You can see it here. Okay, so when this break is done, it'll go into the first segment of Fox Across America.
We'll see you at the fairgrounds March 12th from 1 to 4 p.m. to celebrate this community that helps make our work possible.
All right, and here at 6 after, here comes Fox Across America.
From the Wyoming Corporate Office Studio, all day, all week, all the time, on FM 103.9 and News Talk 930 KROE.
Live from everywhere USA.
So obviously we have our local rejoin liner that plays, and it ducks the satellite audio when it's doing that, and then here comes the live Jimmy Fallon show, which will play for the next 3 hours. So that is kind of that. What else should I show you here? I'll show you a couple of things on another screen here. Actually, I can do it on this one now. Obviously, if I click the stop button there, it'll stop the automation. It'll kill the audio. I can click the start button.
But former South Carolina
and it just turns the audio back on. So a couple of things here. What these buttons up here at the top do. Auto seg is not really used in satellite automation. It's more like in music when you're playing local music. If auto seg is turned on, when it's in auto mode, once the current event is done, it'll just automatically start playing the next one. It's like having all the and buttons linked together. So if autoseg is turned on, it'll just continue playing automation, going through the schedule in order. If you turn autoseg off, it'll stop after the currently playing cut, whatever that happens to be. The fade out will fade out the currently playing cut and just stop. Start next will fade out the currently playing cut and start the next one. And go to live obviously switches it into live mode. So let's go ahead and I don't think we want to have we could do it here, but I don't think we want to have our satellite deck up for this particular demonstration. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop our automation here. And go back into live mode like we were before. So I was obviously dragging and dropping stuff in here from the schedule or loading them manually. But what if you wanted to play something that wasn't in the schedule here? Well, you can do that just by inserting it into the schedule. So there's a couple ways to do that. You can right click and choose insert by name, or do Control-I on the keyboard, and then type in the cart number for whatever the file is that you want to insert into the schedule. Either click apply or hit enter, and it will drop it right in here. In auto mode, it'll just add it into the list wherever it happens to be. In live mode, it'll just insert it into the schedule. Then you have to drag it over into a deck to play it. And so that's how you insert stuff that's not in there. You can also search for stuff if you don't know the name, and I don't have the inventory tab configured on this screen, so let's jump over to another one that has it. Let's go here. Hopefully this doesn't take a long time like it did last time here. Looks like it's being reasonably snappy. Now, this one's going to be a little sluggish because we're remoting into a workstation that is itself remoted into a virtual machine. So we're doing like a double remote session here. So this might be a little slow to operate. But the inventory tab is here. Yeah, and you can type whatever you want. So let's say we're looking for, what should we look for? How about, let's look at that wrap, plumbing and heating. If I type in wrap, it'll show all of the wrap spots. Now you can search for anything. You can search for cart numbers. You can search for descriptions. If you want to find all the Justin Bieber songs, you can type in Justin and it'll start showing Justin, anything with Justin in it. So here's Justin Timberlake, Justin Bieber, all that stuff is in there. So this is searching through the entire inventory of our system. And of course we have multiple stations with different music formats. So we got a lot of songs in here as well. But yeah, you can search for that. You can search for, say the cart number. If we wanted to look for, there's a file 406896, which is a song, I think. It should find that. And there it is. Yep. So yeah, you can search for anything you want here, and it's a pretty quick way to find stuff. Then once you find the spot, you can drag it and drop it over here to play it. You can copy it and paste it into the schedule. Control-C, Control-X, Control-V are your typical standard copy, cut, paste things. You can also right-click and choose copy, and then you can paste it into the schedule here. If I wanted to play that Justin Bieber song, I can paste it in right here, and it'll paste it in above the currently selected line. And there it is. I obviously don't want to play this. I'm going to remove it out of there. You can right-click and delete or Control-X to remove it. Here is something that you can also customize. In this particular station, if you delete something out of a playlist, it'll leave it here and just put an exclamation mark on it. It won't play it, but that exclamation mark will show that it was there and got deleted. You can also just have it remove it off the list if you would prefer. Something else you can do, we need to just change our layout a little bit here to make this happen, but these tabs are just because you have two things in the same pane. If we close that, and I take this inventory and I move it to a different pane, like say below the schedule. And again, this is sluggish because I'm remoted into a remote here. But here is now a separate window with the inventory. So now you can just drag it and drop it up into here. And that's a quicker way to do it. And again, the mouse pointer is not changing because of my remote session, but normally you would see an arrow in there. And so now it plays it that way. Control-X. We'll remove it out of there. These are also adjustable. You can change the size and shape of these. Again, my mouse pointer is not changing, so it's making it hard for me to do it. But yeah, you can adjust the size of all of these areas. If you want less room for your decks, more room for your schedule, or vice versa, you can just take these and resize them. Just drag them around, and it will adjust things on the fly. So that's pretty handy as well. I think I'm going to put this inventory back here along with the schedule. So I'm just going to close that and drag it on top of this section here. And that will put it back into a tab on the same pane there. I can clear my search by clicking the X button here, and now it shows the entire inventory of our system, which is something like 60,000 files, a lot to just search through without having to actually type anything in. These colors are also customizable. These are just the colors I particularly like. Green for commercials, because that's money, right? I do make the PSAs a slightly different color green, so you can see how many of them are in there. I think the weather forecasts are a slightly different color green as well. On this one here, yeah, they're just kind of a lighter green. Liners and stuff like that are this kind of beige color. I have music B blue. The newscasts are a darker blue. But these colors are completely customizable, and the categories themselves are as well. So if you want to do different categories for different types of songs or something, you could do that as well. That stuff is all completely up to you. So that's the basics of it. I can show you a few of the other layouts just to kind of give you an idea of what that. Well, actually, there's one other thing I want to show you here. Let's go into this station. Here's another option of something you can have display that might be useful. We'll bring this up here. Again, this is a remote into a remote, so it might be a little slow. But you can see here on this screen, we've got these little lines that weren't visible in the others. This is an option that you can have as well. This is just kind of indicating what's in the entire schedule for the rest of the day. This beige area is the engine window, what's loaded up in the decks. You can see that we have the yellow boxes for the stuff in the decks. The green box is the one that's currently playing. And this little blue line here is the currently playing event, which should always be in the engine window. It's very rarely not. These red lines are errors in the playlist. And on this particular station, this is an LRN voice track station. So these are probably going to be voice tracks and network spots that just aren't there yet. They normally work, 4 or 5 hours ahead of schedule. So you can see there's a big gap here where there's no errors. This is probably coming up later on today, like 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But if I click on it, it'll jump to where the spot is. So I had to get my remote session active there. So if I click on it now, it takes you to where that error is. And that's actually a promo that's missing. So I should alert somebody to that one there. But you can see that that jumps you right to where the error is. The error shows up as an E here. And actually, when it's coming up, if I drag this over and drop it into here, oh, look there. Now the pointer is working properly on this session. That's funny. Okay, so if I insert it in between these two things right here, now you can see when stuff is getting closer to play, it's a lot more prominent if there's a problem with it. It shows that the event is out of date, and it's very clearly showing you that there is a problem right there, and that spot's not going to play. I can trash it out of the schedule just by clicking the trash button here, and that removes it out of there. So the rest of these are probably network spots and voice tracks that aren't there yet. I'm just going to go ahead and click on one of them here, and we'll see where it takes us. Yeah, so a lot of these are voice tracks. That Fox Sports promo is showing up. But here we have voice tracks, network spots. That stuff just hasn't been recorded yet. It'll get done later today. If you were seeing errors coming up here sooner, it would be a more of an alert condition there. Let's just move our schedule up into here. And if I click this button here, you can see this little green line. That's the currently selected line. So if you are somewhere else in the log and you want to see where you currently are selected, you can just jump right there by clicking that, and it'll take you right to the currently selected line. If you want to go back up to where you currently are playing, you just click that button right there, and it'll take you right to the spot where you currently are. Another way to do that is if you're down here inserting stuff in later on in the day, you can right-click in here, and you can choose Snap to Current, and that will take you up to the current spot in the schedule as well. So that's another thing you can do. Let's show you some of the other layouts real quick here. This is some other options that we can do for this screen. Like I said, these layouts are completely customizable. You don't have to have the decks on the right. You can have them on the top. You can have the schedule on the bottom. You can split it that way. You can do all kinds of different layouts. So if I close this here, we can have just the schedule if you want that. That's not really handy, but it's possible because you can actually have columns here showing the play status and stuff like that. So you can actually duplicate a lot of the stuff that's on those big decks here in this smaller window. But yeah, we can take the engine and we can stick it here as a tab on this one here. So we've got an engine now that's a tab along with the schedule. You can have it laid out that way if you want. If we close the schedule, we can now move it over to the right, or maybe let's stick it down below. Let's take the schedule and drop it down here at the bottom. So now we've got a schedule down here at the bottom and decks on the top. All kinds of different layouts you can do. And you can do even further than that. Let's go ahead and close this here. And if we go into the admin mode, there are other layouts that are available as well. I don't like any of these as much as the one I've been showing you, but it's available as options to you if you prefer them. This one here is basically used, I think, more for voice tracking. Let's see. Yeah, this one is more of a voice track layout, which you probably aren't going to be doing. Voice tracks get recorded here. You've got quick start buttons for jingles and liners and stuff. You've got your inventory here, so you can load stuff into your schedule if you want. You've got your schedule here, and you've got decks for voice tracking here. So what you would do is you would have your previous song here, your voice track here, and your next song here, and you can adjust the layouts and stuff and make them all back time nicely with that particular layout. Not one that you're probably going to use. Oh, I should have left it open because I can just change them right here. So let's go back into that. And again, with this here, I can close and open the UI. It doesn't take anything off the air. The engine is actually this little guy right here. This is the engine that's actually playing the audio. This is just your user interface for it. So the user interface is independent of the engine. You can do whatever you want in here, and it's not going to affect what's on the air. So this is a production layout. They do have a way of recording cuts and carts into this system directly rather than the system I showed you in the previous video. But I don't find this one nearly as easy to use. So I don't think this is one that I would recommend you. It's available there as an option if you would prefer it, but I think using the other system tends to work a lot better than this one. It's a lot less resource hungry too. So that's a layout there. And then they also have one that is a lot more flashy. This Touch on Air is a lot flashier layout. It's basically the same idea as the one I've been showing you, but it's definitely a lot more bright and vivid. But the decks all kind of work the same. You know, if I click the button here, it plays it.
Did you know that Sheridan has some of the most advanced
We've got our stop, our fade.
in the country? Sheridan Memorial
But,
Hospital's state-of-the-art
you know, just another way of, here's a schedule here on this one.
Trained team of surgeons to perform above and
Stop it like that. This is just a nested view. Of course, you can make that flat as well, but tons of different layouts. You know, whichever one you like the look of best, I guess, is the one we can use. So I think that's the basics. I don't know if there's much else I want to show you at this point. Just kind of gives you an idea of how that works. I think, again, it's fairly easy once you get used to the interface. And let's go ahead and put this back in since this is a backup to our primary station here. I probably ought to have it up and running how it should be. So let's go back into the UI here. Let's get it laid out properly. I've been messing with this a lot. Just go ahead and close all this stuff here. Let's get rid of all of it. And let's just get an engine over here on the right. And let's get a schedule here on the left. That's how they like it. Let's put it into auto mode. And if we put it into auto mode and start it,
Laps.
there we go.
Okay,
now we're
this
running
is
our
a guy
automation,
who told
and it's
you
just going to go ahead and play through the satellite shows for the rest of the day. So there you go. That's the basics of the Audio Vault Flex on-air system. And as I said before, this is not really a tutorial on how to use it. It just kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like. And once we actually get your system built and you can start playing with it, that's when you'll really get to learn how to do it. But hopefully that was a useful introduction to that system.